For this video I'm going to show you how I make the Macrame beaded bracelet. This is just a single wrap bracelet. Starting off you need your board and clips. You can use different kinds of boards, but this is the one that I use. I've got 2mm satin cord which I'm going to use for the holding thread. This one you won't see because it's going to be covered by the coloured cord that I'm putting over the top. This is the rainbow cord that I'm using over the top. This is 1mm satin rainbow. I've got a couple of jump rings that I'm going to use to fasten the end of the bracelet because I'm going to put proper clasps on this one. This is the lobster clasp I'm using. You don't have to use one of these, but this is just the one I'm using for this particular bracelet. I've got a couple of crimp rings here, which I'm going to use to fasten the cord to the rings and the clasp. Then I've got 10 black beads. These are the iron beads that kids like to make patterns out of, but they work quite well on bracelets. Hammer beads, Perler Beads, whatever other brand you know of, you can use and they're all fine. I've also got lighter to seal the ends, pliers so that you can close the clasps, ruler to measure out the cord, and if you wanted to use a different cord you can use coloured. I'm not using this one because it's not going to show up, so I'm just going to use a plain one like this. Right, we'll get started. Right, before I get started, what I do is I like to use the lighter to seal this end into a point. I've already done this one, and then this makes it easier to thread all the beads on, and I get them all on before I start. So I'm just going to thread all these on. As I said, I picked 10 beads for this one because once you've done your knots, that makes it long enough to go around the wrist. Right, so once you've put the beads on, I put on one clasp. So you can make this overlap a little bit because you can cut the end off afterwards. And then just carefully use your pliers to fold this one over. These ones are quite thin, so they're a bit fiddly to wrap around, but they do go around. Sorry, coming off the camera a bit there. Right, so you've got this on and you can snip that end off later, and now you're ready to attach it to the board. So I just put that bit under there, and then I don't cut this thread because then it saves on waste because the board's a little bit longer than the bracelet's going to be. But I clip it here at the bottom to keep it nice and tight for when I start to do the knotting. And then that's on like that. And just pull the rest out of the way. So now it's time to start knotting. When you start the bracelet, you take your cord, your thin cord that's going to actually show, and you cut about a foot for every inch of your wrist, depending on who you're making it for. If you're making it for yourself or a friend or family member, whatever. So measure out on a ruler. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So I'm making this for a 6-inch wrist, so I'm cutting out 6 feet, but obviously adapt it to fit. And once you've cut that out, you need to attach it on here. So I meet the ends together there, and then pull it down there to make sure it's right in the middle. And then holding this part, I do a square knot for my first knot. And then the other half of the square knot, like that. So that gets it attached, and then you can just push it up to your clasp. So from then on, I do a few square knots down to about there, and then I start adding the beads. So first one is over the top, and then that one under, like that, and then you're going under, under and through, then back to over, over and through, under, under and through, over, over and through. If you get stuck on which side you're on, if you can see the colour, there's a different colour here to it is there, so you know whether you're going over the top with that colour or underneath, and this with this colour it's over the top. So this one will be under, this one will be under, and then it comes over so that the pink shows there. Under, under, over, 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 under, oops, and then under, under, over, 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 under, under, over. So I like to do about an inch before I start adding the beads, so if you want to be precise you can measure it out. I need to do a few more there. So over, over, under, 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 over. That looks about right. Yeah, it's slightly over. So you count out how many knots you've done there, and you can do the exact same amount for the end. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So if you've done 9 at the beginning, do 9 at the end, and then it's equal. Right, so now you start adding your beads, and you can just slide them up if you've already put them on. After that, just carefully do 1 square knot over the top. Don't do it too tight, but just enough to keep it in place. That's the first half, and then the second half. And then knot that in place. And then move your next bead up. Go over, over, under, and then under, under, and through. Then your next bead up, over, over, through, under, under, and through. So now you just repeat that until you get to the end of the beads, and then you do another 9 square knots or however many that you needed for yours, and then we'll come back to finishing it off. Right, now I'm at the end of the bracelet, so you can remove it from the board. And then cut these ends. Cut this a little bit generously so you can still allow the clip. And cut this close-ish, but leave a little bit so that you can burn the end. Some people use glue, I tend to just burn it and then just dab that end onto there. Just keeps it in place, stops the knot coming out. And do the same to the other side. And then you can add your clip. And check which way you did it last time, so I've put it together on that end, so I'm going to put this one together on that, facing this way. Try and get it as close up as you can. And then you can just cut that end off. And just for a little bit of added security, I tend to melt the end as well. And hopefully it should stay in place. And then just trim the other end if you haven't done it already. Careful not to burn yourself there. Right, so then all you've got to do is add your rings and your clasp. So on the first one, I'll put on clasp and the ring together, and just feed this through into there, and then close it. Make sure it's nice and tight together. And then add the ring to the other end. Make sure those are pinched well together so that it doesn't come apart. And then you've got one finished bracelet. Just to demonstrate the bracelet when worn. You see it's a bit big on my wrist, but I like mine looser. I don't like them too tight, but you can alter the amount of knots or the amount of beads according to personal taste. But I like mine a bit like a bangle. Well, I hope that helped, and I'd be interested to see if anybody made a variation on that or whatever. Do what you like with it, just have fun.